The wind whispered softly against the old wooden window frame as Eleanor lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. The room was dimly lit by the gentle glow of a bedside lamp, casting shadows that danced in rhythm with the flickering flame of a candle. It had been a long day, and yet, sleep felt like a distant dream. Her mind was filled with worries, memories of the past, uncertainties of the future, and the quiet ache in her heart that never seemed to fade. She closed her eyes, trying to steady her breath, but the silence of the night only amplified her thoughts. Then, a familiar voice echoed in her memory. Her grandmother's voice, warm and soothing, telling her a story she had heard countless times as a child. "The night isn't just for resting, my dear," her grandmother used to say, brushing Eleanor's hair back as she tucked her in. "It's for healing, for letting go. The stars hold the stories of those before us, the moon watches over us, and the wind carries away our worries. If you listen closely, you'll hear the night speaking to you." Eleanor opened her eyes, letting the words settle in her heart. She slowly sat up, pushed the window open, and felt the cool night air on her skin. The world outside was quiet, peaceful, almost as if it was waiting for her to listen. The gentle rustling of the trees, the distant sound of crickets, and the slow rhythm of her own breath merged into a quiet lullaby. She closed her eyes again, this time with intention. "Let go," she whispered to herself. "Let the night heal you." A sudden breeze swept through the open window, carrying with it the faint scent of jasmine from the garden below. Eleanor shivered slightly but didn't move away. Instead, she leaned into the moment, as if the night itself had wrapped her in an invisible embrace. Then, something unusual happened. A faint hum drifted through the air, not a sound she had heard before, yet oddly familiar. It wasn't the wind, nor the rustling leaves, but something softer, almost like a melody carried from a distant time. Her heartbeat quickened. Was it her imagination? Or was the night truly whispering to her, just as her grandmother had said? She turned her head toward the source of the sound, her eyes searching the darkness. The shadows of the trees swayed gently, and the stars above twinkled as if they held a secret only she could uncover. Eleanor took a deep breath, her thoughts slowing, her fears easing. The worries that had once felt so heavy now seemed to dissolve into the air, blending with the quiet hum of the night. For the first time in a long while, she felt something different. A shift, a presence, a sense of peace she hadn't known she was searching for. But what was this feeling? And why did it seem like the night itself was trying to tell her something? Eleanor's fingers curled over the wooden windowsill as she leaned forward, trying to make sense of the gentle hum that seemed to weave itself into the night air. It was neither a song nor mere noise, it was something deeper, something that reached into the quiet corners of her soul. Her grandmother's words echoed in her mind again. "The night speaks if you listen." A part of her wanted to dismiss it as exhaustion, the product of an overactive mind searching for meaning in the stillness. But another part, one she rarely listened to anymore, urged her to trust the moment. Slowly, she stepped away from the window and reached for the knitted shawl draped over the chair. Wrapping it around her shoulders, she slipped her bare feet into her slippers and moved toward the door. The wooden floor creaked softly beneath her steps as she made her way downstairs. The house was still, wrapped in the same kind of hush that filled the air before dawn. But outside, the night was alive, whispering, singing, calling. She hesitated at the front door. It had been so long since she had wandered beyond the walls of her own hesitation, so long since she had followed a feeling instead of a plan. But something about this night was different. With a deep breath, she turned the handle and stepped outside. The cool night air wrapped around her instantly, sending a pleasant shiver through her body. The garden path stretched ahead, bathed in silver light. The wind carried the scent of damp earth and blooming flowers, wrapping her in a familiar embrace. And then she heard it again. That hum. But now, it wasn't just sound, it was something alive, something moving. Eleanor turned her head, following the source, and found herself drawn toward the willow tree at the far end of the garden. It was her favorite tree as a child, the place where she used to sit for hours, reading or daydreaming while her grandmother tended to the roses. The branches swayed gently, their long tendrils shifting in the breeze like they, too, were listening. As she stepped closer, she noticed something unusual. A small, glowing light flickered at the base of the tree. At first, she thought it was a firefly, but as she neared, she realized it wasn't an insect at all. It was something else. The light pulsed, dimming and glowing softly, as if breathing. And the moment she reached out toward it, the hum grew louder, not overwhelming, but warm, wrapping around her like a song only she could hear. Eleanor's breath hitched. She wasn't imagining it. The night truly was speaking. But what was it trying to say? As she knelt beside the glowing light, her fingertips grazing the cool grass, a memory surfaced. A night just like this one, years ago, when she was a little girl curled up under this very tree. Her grandmother had sat beside her, brushing her fingers through Eleanor's hair as she spoke softly. "There is magic in the night, my dear. It is where the lost find their way, where the weary find peace. But most of all, it is where the heart learns to listen." Eleanor closed her eyes, allowing the warmth of the memory to settle within her. Maybe this was why she had been so restless. Why sleep had evaded her. Because she had forgotten how to listen. She had spent so long searching for answers in the chaos of the day, in the noise of her thoughts, that she had forgotten the quiet wisdom of the night. A soft tear rolled down her cheek, not of sadness, but of release. And as if the night itself had been waiting for that moment, the hum faded into the breeze, dissolving like a lullaby at its final note. Eleanor let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. The tension in her shoulders eased. Her mind, once clouded with worries, now felt lighter, clearer. She turned her gaze toward the sky. The stars were the same as they had always been, but now, they seemed to shine just a little brighter. Maybe they had been waiting for her to notice. Maybe the night had been waiting for her to heal. With a final glance at the willow tree, Eleanor rose to her feet and made her way back inside. She slipped beneath the covers, her body sinking into the mattress with a weightless ease she hadn't felt in years. And as her eyes fluttered closed, she heard her grandmother's voice one last time, like a whisper carried by the wind. "Rest now, my dear. Let the night heal you." This time, Eleanor listened. And for the first time in a long, long while, she slept. The silence of the night wrapped around Eleanor like a comforting embrace. For the first time in years, she felt truly at peace. No lingering doubts, no restless thoughts, just a quiet stillness settling deep within her soul. As she drifted toward sleep, something remarkable happened. A warmth, gentle and reassuring, seemed to press against her chest, not a physical touch, but an unspoken presence. It was as if the night itself was holding her, whispering without words that she was safe, that she was exactly where she was meant to be. Her dreams came softly, like waves rolling onto a shore. She was a child again, running barefoot through the garden, the scent of roses filling the air. Her grandmother stood beneath the willow tree, smiling, her kind eyes filled with knowing. "You finally listened," she said, her voice light as the wind. Eleanor smiled back. "I think I had forgotten how." Her grandmother chuckled. "The heart never forgets, my dear. It only waits." The dream shimmered, fading at the edges. The stars above seemed to pulse, guiding her back toward the waking world. When Eleanor's eyes fluttered open, the first light of dawn was creeping over the horizon. The hum of the night was gone, replaced by the gentle song of birds greeting the morning. But something had changed. The weight she had carried for so long was no longer there. The worries that had once kept her awake felt distant, like echoes of a storm that had finally passed. Eleanor stretched, inhaling deeply. The air smelled fresh, filled with the promise of a new day. She turned to the window, watching as the golden light spilled across the garden, touching the willow tree with a soft glow. A quiet smile spread across her lips. Perhaps the night had healed her after all. And as she stepped away from the window, ready to face whatever lay ahead, she carried the lesson with her, one she would never forget again. Sometimes, the answers we seek aren't found in the noise of the world, but in the quiet whispers of the night. And when we truly listen, that's when we find our way home.